So, welcome to the second chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and the first sutra in the second chapter. And the second chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is called Sadhana Pada. And sadhana is practice. And in this first sutra, he also already actually talks about what is termed as Kriya Yoga, which means the yoga of action. And so the second chapter is a lot about practice. Like, what can you practice? I feel I'm this kind of separate self, and what is for me to practice? Like more of a mm, more of a practical means to understand what yoga, union, the unified essence that you actually already are, and also how to actually live also from this implication, what that actually implies, that we are unified, that we are not separate. How do I live life from that? So more of a practical, if you can say so, approach is actually described in the second chapter. And this first sutra is what he says is Tapaha Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. So what he's talking about is what is the action, the yoga of action. Like what is a really good pathway for you to realize the self and to understand your unified essence. And the first thing he mentions is tapaha. Tapaha comes from tapas, which means actually no thirst. It is how can we actually reduce this feeling that we are inside of experience, and that there's sort of compulsory that I have a thought, I am hungry, and I have to instantly actually eat something, for example, or I eat all these compulsions that thoughts actually start to start to have in one way or another, that you feel compelled to by your thoughts, and oftentimes by some form of conditioning. The conditioning perceives the world in a certain way. Your conditioning, and the conditioning is usually based in your past experiences. So you're continuously actually projecting your past experiences onto this present moment. You're continuously projecting it, what you know, on the screen of your awareness or onto the reality that you see. And in that way, the reality shapes itself according to your perception also, because whatever I is your conditioning is sort of painted as an overlay over what actually appears. And so tapas is to become aware of your thoughts. It is one of the biggest practices and one of the things that you will have to do, that there's no way around it, is to start witnessing your own thoughts, to start having a detachment from your mind, from whatever is actually happening in your mind. That's the biggest tapas. Doesn't necessarily mean austerity anymore, that we need to sit somewhere and fast and do all these kind of things that they did centuries ago to sort of get out of their bodies or get out of their perceived sense of self. It is more to literally create a distance to your mind. And that is only happening when you start observing thoughts and when you actually start observing everything that is happening or arising as an appearance, and you are actually also acknowledging as an appearance. So you are not taking it on. You are starting to witness everything that arises. That includes sensations of your body. Like, for example, you are hungry or you are tired or whatever it is. These are also thoughts. These are also seen inside of awareness. And you will have to do that because only then you are actually creating a distance between what you are in truth and whatever is appearing, especially what is appearing as your person and what you're usually not conscious of that you're identified with. And you will have to create this distance. It is really pivotal. And this distance also enables you a distance to your usual thoughts or to whatever you have taken on and identified with. It's not just for realization, but it's also just such a helpful tool for you to get out of your mechanisms and your negative conditioning and your negative perceptions of what you're projecting on the screen of your consciousness. So this distance is very relevant. And it's such a big step because literally what you are is aware of experience, all appearance. You are that awareness. So you aren't found in those experiences. You aren't found in your thoughts. This is not who you are. And so this distance is also like your fast step out of being in it, in experience, thinking this is you, this defines you, and all the thoughts that come with that definition and identification. For example, that this is your given trajectory of life. There's nothing else for you because this is what has been your past, or this is what is your memory, or this is what you assume will be your future, or this is what you assume you are. And the limited scope it gives actually then to your trajectory, to your life, to your assumption of self, to your worthiness, to all these things. So Tapaha, purification, starting to, in my opinion, one of the things that will give you the biggest reward is starting to listen to your thoughts, starting to witness thoughts, starting to observe your own patterns, but not from this super ego kind of then being very rigid with yourself or feeling not good enough, but simply seeing it all as not you, because that's what it is. It isn't you. You aren't your conditioning. You aren't what happened to you. You aren't all these kind of things. Creating distance to whatever arises. Also sensations. All your compulsions. All these are all entrained mechanisms of the mind. And they can all be witnessed. All can be witnessed from the space of awareness. So this is a big part of your purification, both on this relative level and one's own conditionings and own unhelpful patterns, as well as for those of you that are actually wanting to realize the self and find themselves stronger as awareness. And then the second thing he says is swadhyaya. It means self-inquiry. So self-inquiry is obviously also in yoga. It's also proclaimed in yoga. And it is another very, very important step, because that is also helping you to find out what you are. It is self-inquiry. It is asking yourself what you actually are. So you're not found in any experience because you are aware of all experience. So that already means there is something that isn't in the experience, but that is aware of experience. And you're starting to inquire, what is the self? Who am I? Where is this self then found? And what is aware of all sorts of experiences? And how can I become more aware of this awareness? Or how can I become aware of the consciousness that I am? How can I abide as awareness? But also these meditative questions of self-inquiry, of asking yourself what you are, starting to discriminate, but experientially, meditatively, starting to discriminate between what appears, even what appears as your past, and what appears as your thoughts, what appears as your emotions, and the nature of you. Making a distinction between the nature of what you are and what appears, starting to see these two facets. That's why yoga actually discriminates these two facets. It isn't because it is unclear that it is ultimately one. It is just clear that for realizing the self, you have to start discriminating between Purusha and Prakriti, or between what you are, the nature of yourself, and what is eternal, what is changeless, and what appears, what is changing, the form this then takes on, and to start discriminating between both. And that's what is happening also as you inquire into the self, as you do self-inquiry. And then the last thing he mentions, what is a very, very helpful tool, like a tool to support your journey, is Ishvara Pranidhanani. So Ishvara Pranidhana, what is that? It is a surrender to a divine or higher self, what we nowadays often term the higher self, what is also known as some form of divinity. Why is that so relevant? Because for many people, this higher self or the divine is a sort of intermediary between a separate self and God. And it is also actually for many people the first step that they realize that something in them actually knows, that there is something in you that knows better, that there is something in you that is actually already aware of your journey, that there is something that you can turn to when you need help, or when you need guidance, or when you need support. And that this is also so relevant. It is the first time also that the separate self isn't looking for that outside. You're not reading a book. You're not asking someone else. You're not listening on YouTube. You are actually starting to find this inside you. You are finding this kind of guidance inside you. You're finding answers to questions inside you. You are having an idea of a future event that already comes. So there is some form of, wow, there's an awareness that you have, or that opens up to you, a form of insight. And this intermediary called Ishvara, or the divine, is also special about this yogic philosophy. But it is also that this is such a helpful step, because you're getting in touch with this vaster intelligence, and you're already actually finding that it isn't found outside of yourself, but that there is something inside of you that is knowing. And what this also often has, that's why it's also saying you surrender to this. You are surrendering, Pranidhana, you're surrendering to this, because the personal self is sort of the end product. If you think about the true self, then your higher self, and then the person. Obviously, in the end, it is also all one, right? But if you think about it in that way, it is sort of like the end product. And oftentimes the personal self, which is your thought forms, your mechanisms, your conditioned sense of self, your stories of where you have been, your projections of what's there to come in the future, is often so limited to sense perceptions. The sense perceptions I'm having right now, and what my conditioned sense of self then makes out of these sense perceptions. What do they mean for me right now? And it always also comes oftentimes from a very limited perspective that is based on what is next. What is my next? Where can I find something that is relevant or giving me happiness in the future? Because it is so limited. Why is that? Because it is so limited to the mind and what the mind thinks that happiness can be found in. So it can be found later as the hope, oh, it's in your next relationship, or in your next vacation, or in your next job, or in your next whatever placement, or in your next job, or you know how it is. This is how the thought mechanisms and the collective mindset and all the conditioned senses, what this life is about, makes you believe. And what the personal self then oftentimes is continuously hoping for this happiness in the future, or for avoiding pain, or whatever the personal self really thinks at a moment of time. It's very, very limited. And so he says, surrender to this higher self. Surrender, come more close to this divine self. Come more close to your soul self. There is a purity that comes with that. Already in this surrender, in this humbling, in this knowing there is a vaster essence inside myself. In this humbling also, my personal self doesn't know so much. My sensory perception is very limited. What I think I want is very limited. What I think this life could be about is very limited. All these kind of thoughts actually can be very humbling, that you're trusting more in this life, or trusting more in this higher self, trusting that there is something inside of you that guides you, and also the kind of purity that your soul has. So oftentimes there is this, why is this happening to me in my life? This is what the personal self thinks, because the personal self just sees this moment is full of suffering, or this moment is happening, and I don't like it, or I would rather have this happening right now. Whereas your soul self, or your higher self, or your divine self, is actually knowing why you are here. It has a different understanding of why you came. It isn't avoiding pain, or running for pleasure all the time. It has a different understanding of your purpose, what this life actually wants you to do. And oftentimes we get so caught up in this personal self, and the next day and the next month, and these planning schemes to ensure something. Whereas imagine your vaster self comes here with a different kind of purpose, an orientation that is oftentimes an orientation of service to others, that you are here to for consciousness, right? Not necessarily only for selfish reasons, or this limited next day kind of sense of self. There's a different trajectory to your life, and there's a different purity also that you already have. Different purity that is you, that is already here, and that is also actually coming more in already by you surrendering to your divine or higher self. Having more of this trust in your divine self that is orchestrating this life, that you are, that this life is exactly as you, from a vaster point, not the personal self, but as you want it to be, exactly as it is meant for you, exactly to explore what you want to explore, and to lean more on that, and to trust more in that, and to trust your own inner guidance system, and your own inner support system, and to also stronger lean on this, to know there's something inside of you. You don't have to always rely on external sources. You don't have to continuously externalize support, guidance. There is something already within you that is plugged in, you could say, that knows everything, actually, what is relevant for your life. And so these three things Patanjali mentions as instrumental for your, you could say, kriya. Kr comes from action. It means for your action plan. What you can rely on already right now. Tapas, purification, starting to overhear your own thoughts, creating distance, especially to patterns that are unhelpful or that you don't actually want. Swadhyaya, inquiring into the self. Who are you truly? What is your nature? Not your current expression, not that what is changing. What are you? What is the changeless? What is the deeper dimension of yourself? And Ishvara Pranidhana, relying and more strongly leaning on and trusting, having faith in your higher self, this divine self, this part of you that knows. And so this is the first sutra in the chapter of practice, and in a more action-oriented plan of what serves you right now. Namaste.